So I would congratulate OSEA today on the milestone of a second International One Health Conference. It's wonderful to be here. So looking at this title slide, there's several words in there that are really important. Strategic, innovative, vision. And so I think that is why we're here today, is to think about how the foundation that was laid in the first 5 years is now being built upon by things like the Global Health Security Agenda. So the first thing I would do then is to invite you all to transport yourselves 20 years into the future to 2035 and to ask yourself, what impact have One Health and the Global Health Security Agenda had on human, animal, and environmental health and well-being? But what's important is to think about how will we get there? What will we do? What you would say is the very first thing that you would think of that you would want to see if you woke up tomorrow in 2035. I'll come back to you later on that. So as has been said already, the Global Health Security Agenda is an important part of today, of the next 3 days. So the Global Health Security Agenda is intended to attain a world safe and secure from global health threats posed by infectious disease. And so the exchange of knowledge, the exchange of information is very much a piece of the One Health agenda. So why do we need a Global Health Security Agenda? Because we are vulnerable. Infectious disease epidemics, as has already been said, pose local and international health security threats. And in that box you see some of the more recent as well as some threats that have gone on for decades. So we've talked already about Ebola, the catastrophic human and economic costs, and of course most recently in the news, the idea that Ebola might relapse, that victims who have recovered may in fact become ill again, which is a daunting thought. SARS, 11 years ago, cost $40 billion in only 4 months. In 2009, H1N1 influenza killed nearly over 250,000 people in the first year alone. In the US, anthrax attacks in 2001 infected 22 people and killed nearly half of them. And of course, AIDS has spread silently for decades. Why the Global Health Security Agenda? Because no one nation can achieve global health security on its own. Our borders are artificial, not recognized by biological agents, and it's up to us to have national multi-sectoral cooperation and preparedness that's at the core of effective control of infectious disease. And this map is basically Global Health Security Agenda, countries working together on commitments to stemming the spread of infectious disease through prevention, detection, and response. It's not only about health, it's about economies. We no longer have country economies, we have global economy, and so the vitality of that economy is only as secure as the collective health of our people. And really this is where we get to One Health. One Health concepts, again, which we talk about a lot, we are connected in as many different ways as you see on this map to others who find One Health to be important as well. The GHSA has been deemed a global accelerator. If any of you are in business, then the term accelerator is often used in business to think about startup companies and how you get them to the point where they can move products to market. That is exactly the idea behind the GHSA, and that is to accelerate development of international health regulations, to accelerate the level and the quality of performance of veterinary services to the end point of, again, controlling these killer diseases. A very young agenda, February 2014. It's voluntary, it's country-driven, and there is urgency, as has been said already. It's on a 5-year timeline. We'll see in a minute there are 11 GHSA targets. These are packaged into 3 basic areas, and already there's been a great uptake of this task through G7 countries, 60 countries. There's a 10-country steering group. Individual countries have stepped up to chair that group. Emphasis in all of this is on cross-sectoral communication, as well as partnering with non-governmental groups several of which are listed and several of which you heard from this morning, which is a great testament to this conference that you have that many people and that many important agencies represented here. 3 areas: prevent, detect, respond. What's great about the GHSA is that it has packaged these goals in bite-sized pieces. Under prevent, you have 4 action packages, including antimicrobial resistance, zoonotic disease, biosafety and biosecurity, and immunization. Under detect, you've already heard we are interested in national laboratory systems, real-time surveillance, reporting, and very important to One Health workforce development. So a complete overlap between the 2 agendas. Respond, emergency operations centers, linking public health laws with multi-sectoral rapid response, and developing medical countermeasures and personnel deployment schemes. So on the top panel, under the heading Prevent Zoonotic Disease, the first item there is target. So for this particular subset of Task 2, the target is adopted and measured, with emphasis on measured behaviors, policies, and practices that minimize the transmission of zoonotic diseases from animals into human population. So here on the very top of the slide then is target. Underneath that, as measured by. And look how specific the as measured by is. Identify 5 zoonotic diseases, pathogens of greatest national public health concern, and strengthen existing surveillance systems for prioritized zoonoses. So within a given country, a given region, those diseases will vary, but it's very specific as to what the goal is. Underneath target and as measured by, the next area is desired impact. So this is a little bit longer, but you can pull out keywords. Implementation of guidance and models on behaviors, policies, and practices, with the ultimate goal of minimizing the spread of disease and specifically halting it before you get to a point where there's efficient human-to-human transmission. And that is, who will do the work? There must be leaders, there must be people who step up. Those, in this case, under this Task 2 for zoonotic disease, the leading countries were Indonesia and Vietnam, with the contributing countries listed there. And then finally, about accountability. It's all about measuring, assessing, and holding ourselves to outcomes that will in fact advance the agenda. I have to start on that. And it's surprising to me, under the veterinarians column on this side here, it's very specific. So under no capacity, what's listed is country has public health trained veterinarians in less than 40% of districts. When you get up to the sustainable capacity, then you have over 80% of the districts having public health trained veterinarians. So an ambitious, well-organized, collaborative agenda. These are country partners. In red, the founding members of the steering committee. Underlined, importantly, are 5 countries that were the first to undergo voluntary external assessment. And by doing that, these countries allowed themselves to be assessed, to identify gaps in their own health security that were related to these 11 tasks, to set a baseline, to be assessed by peers, and in doing this, to benefit themselves, their partners, and other country plans. So very transparent process and results. In looking at the 5 countries, pilot countries that have already been done, you see Uganda as one of the first in the group of pilot countries, and every one of these countries then have published on the web the outcomes of this assessment. So here is a well-known figure to you, One Health sectors. So you have not only human health sector, including physicians, public health professionals, government, non-governmental organizations. You have the environment, which we tend to speak less of, and it's one that as health professionals we need to force ourselves to think of probably more often, certainly including wildlife biology, and that's an area that veterinary schools are particularly capable of contributing to. And then finally, under agriculture, animal production, and veterinary medicine sector, we have not only veterinarians, but also the community and public health workers and animal producers that are necessary partners to have those groups actually achieve One Health outcomes. Of course, those groups are not working in isolation. This is a diagram from Peter Daszak, who published a few years ago now the article that really showed the hot zones of the world and talked about the need to think about pandemic threats and how we prevent them. So I'm very proud to say that University of Minnesota, Tufts University, have been partners in the One Health effort in Central and Eastern Africa for over 5 years now, going on 6 years. And the early efforts were a suite of programs that included a number, including Respond, which is what University of Minnesota and Tufts were involved with. That suite of programs expired about a year ago, and a second suite, a second 5 years of funding came in. The projects that are ongoing then are Predict 2, which is a continuation of the Predict from the first 5 years. These folks have been called virus hunters. They isolate and characterize viral agents from wildlife that might pose potential threats to human or animal populations. And so there's labs scattered around the areas that are impacted by the EPT program. And these folks have done a fabulous job. As we said, the theme of the conference is Strategic Approach to Global Health Security through One Health Innovations Vision 2035. And maybe I'm biased, but I think a huge piece of that vision is in education. So our One Health Workforce Vision is a transdisciplinary collaborative strategy to improve, again, the health of humans, animals, and the environment, importantly through education and training. But as all of us know in our own institutions, the need to assess and demonstrate as educators that we're having desired outcomes has been built into the One Health effort from the ground up, and I think that's incredibly powerful. So the framework is for dialogue, planning, and collaboration, and so listed here are sort of the 3 steps. Know your One Health competency domains, identify the gaps, and fill the gaps. Unless you measure the gaps and you know where you want to go, it's less likely that you will actually adequately fill them. So I say again that outcomes assessment and measurement and assessment are critical. Again, just like the Global Health Security Agenda, the intent here is not for schools and countries to develop and guard their products. It is to develop and share their products. And so in the case of Siahun, there are a group of One Health modules that have been created. They're adaptable to a variety of target learners. It's like a buffet of materials, lessons, and resources. And so I have the URL on the bottom of the slide. It's very readily available, and I encourage you to go and look at those because they're free for you to use as well as for you to use as models for things that you may want to develop. So that was a walkthrough of the Global Health Security Agenda, of the efforts that USAID has funded in the One Health sector, including up to now the EPT program with Predict 2, Preparedness and Response, and One Health Workforce. And so as we train individuals to go forth and apply the skills that are essential for preventing the spread or the existence or spread of infectious disease, then we're back to saying now what will be the outcome of our efforts? And so I would transport you now back to up to 2035. We often in a One Health talk will mention some of the challenges that are on this slide. And so these are the risks that we know about today. We don't really know what's going to happen to those in 20 years. We can take an optimistic view, and we can also sense that in some of these cases, what we've done and are doing in research may impact whether those get better in 20 years, get worse, or stay the same. So these include things like climate change, shrinking habitats, pollution and declining biodiversity, water, food security in all its dimensions, and population growth. In 20 years, we will have 1.5 million, 1.5 billion more people on the planet than we have today. So depending on whether you're an optimist or a pessimist or what you know about the data in these areas, and keep those in mind as you think about what your vision then in 2035 will be for our One Health initiatives and for the Global Health Security Agenda. So I chose for my vision to have the backdrop be children, because I think what we do today is incredibly important to the lives that they'll lead in 20 years. And so the very top thing on the very top bubble on my vision, which is again built around the GHSA and One Health, is lifelong One Health education. I would love to see us take what is currently wonderful programs at the level of universities and workshops and even postgraduate education, and drop that all the way back to the early preschool years, so that embedded in all of our curricula are ways of learning where students become comfortable that they're going to work across professions, that the importance of health for humans, animals, and the environment is linked, that something as simple as washing your hands and doing it properly can prevent disease, that they can go home to their families and say to them, this is the right way to prepare or store food that may make it safer. And that is culture of cooperation and partnership, because I think you don't just learn in school. I think that there are strong institutions in many countries, including Uganda, where people go and they learn and they develop tight relationships. The public health infrastructure is an important piece. We already have the beginnings of that, but as you go back to the GHSA, you see a heavy emphasis on local, regional, country networks, so that you have individuals trained at those levels who can in fact respond and can be a source of education for the community. I think the vision in 2035 is definitely linked to bioinformatics and technology. The idea that what we learn today should go into databases, and it does. Often those databases are siloed, and part of the GHSA is to try to make those databases more commonly retrievable, so that information on outbreaks can be shared and can be used constructively. So I think public health infrastructure goes hand in hand with bioinformatics and technology. The research and development bubble at the bottom, it could have been at the top for me too. I think that we cannot implement the agendas that we often discuss without people who ask the hard questions and in an evidence-based way, a data-driven way, come with the answers that tell us whether intervention A or intervention B is going to lead to a better outcome, whether that be basic scientists characterizing a new virus or an epidemiologist looking at population-based disease surveillance. We cannot overlook the importance of investment in research. And so I'll end with saying the skilled workforce is the vision of the future, and I think all the things that I've mentioned around that central core go into making that skilled workforce. And I hope that as you wrote down on your piece of paper, or you thought that some of these same items came up for you. I think over the next 3 days we will see a number of these come into play in the talks and I hope the interactive sessions that go on. And so I encourage you to have an optimistic view of 2035 and to very much be a part of that vision, because it will not happen without us. I wanted to end also by, again, thanking our hosts, OSEA. I also want to thank the University of Minnesota and Tufts teams, because everything I set up here is because of the hard work that you guys do. And specifically, I'd like to thank the Tufts team, because many of you helped share slides with me, and that was important. So thank you again for having me here today. I very much appreciated the chance to speak with you.